Hello everyone, welcome to your personal empowerment channel. Today I am going to tell you how I healed myself from bulimia. Welcome everyone who is new to my channel, and for all my new followers, thank you so much for liking, for subscribing, for sharing those videos, for spreading the word, so to speak, for spreading our voices, because I think there has never been a better time than now than to talk about our own truth, to talk about all those things that you feel like, oh no, I cannot share them with the world. They're too intimate, or they're too, it would maybe change my reputation or whatever. Well, I decided, thanks to a dear friend and client, and if you're watching this, my dear, you know who I'm talking about, who inspired me today so much to talk about this, to make a video about this, because I feel like it could bring value to the world. So how do I heal myself from bulimia? Here's my story. So when I was 19, for those of you knowing me, you know that I grew up in Eastern Germany. I had kind of like a very lost childhood. I felt like an alien on this planet. I felt like I had no emotional support from my family. I felt actually alone when I was with my family, because no one really understood who I was or what I needed. I was this highly empathetic being that was thinking way deeper than the masses. I thought about things like, why are people not happy? Why do people need alcohol in order to laugh or in order to connect with each other? I mean, for me, these things were normal. And so I grew up in this kind of like alien environment world. And as I said, this is going to be a very, very raw video. I have no makeup on whatsoever. I'm just showing myself pure as I am to all of you. And then with 19, and there were some experiences with my mom that I really had to, how can I say, I had to do a lot of forgiveness work. And that was, I think, the hardest, because she was one, she didn't appreciate who I was. She threw away my art, my paintings that I left at her place when I left for Spain. And then I came home and they were all gone, and I was like, where are they? And then I shared about this in one of my last videos. But anyway, so there were some experiences that were enhancing my feeling of unworthiness, and that what I feel, what I am, is not important. The only thing that matters is who she is and what she needs and what she wants. I had kind of like a narcissistic mother, but narcissistic, I think she turned that way. She's not even aware that she is. I mean, many narcissists, they're not aware what they actually are going through or how they are treating others, because everything they ever see is themselves. So they have a hard time connecting to anyone else's feelings because they're so disconnected from their own, or connected, but only to a sense where their own feelings are satisfied and no one else has just to serve, in a way. So anyway, I grew up as this kid that felt unworthy, very unworthy. Everything I wasn't allowed to sing when I was raising my voice. I wasn't allowed to talk. Already as a child, I had a lot of wisdom to share. So there were always these kind of power fights. And then my mom, in one of the honest moments, she once revealed to me, it was like a disclosure, she revealed to me that she was actually jealous of my life, because I was the one leaving Germany, going to Spain, starting my life all alone in Spain, not knowing Spanish, not knowing either Catalan or Spanish, because I went to Barcelona, and Barcelona is Catalonia. And I just started my life there, and within 1 year I remembered the Spanish language. It was just draining out of me. So that was a really interesting experience. But after 1 year in Spain, when I left my family, suddenly I had no one else to fulfill their needs in my life. And my focus was never on my own needs. What do I need to be happy? What do I need? What do I deserve in my own life? What are my own values? What are the things that I love to do, that I like, So the focus was always on my mother, because it was always only about her. And when she was happy, there was peace in the kingdom, but most of the time she wasn't happy. So that was the time that I was actually invited, because I was all on my own. I was living on my own. I went, to do my work. I loved my work, but it was strange in the beginning because, again, as I said, I didn't speak the language. I didn't have many friends. I started my life in a foreign country all on my own. And I felt this void of love. Everything that I missed during my childhood, like people that I could connect to, but really trusting them, people who would get me, who would get the depth of who I am and understand my soul rather than only my human being. I didn't have that. That was not there. So I connected more and more already as a kid, My family, my kinship was nature. I connected to animals, to birds. I started talking to birds, and I love that song from Bob Marley, Baby Don't Worry About a Thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be alright. So he is talking about these 3 birds sitting at his doorstep, singing a song just for you, hoo, baby don't worry. And that is actually what I heard in the song's message of my songbirds. They were always like, baby, don't worry about a thing, because every little thing is going to be all right, So I feel like this is the perfect song for what birds are teaching us. When I connected to dogs, they were showing me unconditional love and unconditional joy. That's what I wanted to be. That's where I wanted to get back to. And when I say back to, something within me remembered that this is who I was once, but I had forgotten through my upbringing, my childhood, my very existence that I felt was disturbing because I was too loud, I was too intense, I was too premature, I was too intelligent, or I was too artistic, I was too, I had so many gifts and they were not really, my dad saw them kind of, and I think he was the one who put me into language schools. And this is why, at the age of 19, I already spoke 3 languages. And then I started learning English, and then French came afterwards. So I had felt, again, when I was in Spain, living on my own, trying to figure out, okay, so who am I? And what is important to me? What are my values? Why am I here on this planet? While I was asking myself these questions, I felt this deep void, like being all alone, being misunderstood by everyone, people that were just seeking superficial pleasures. That was not me. I was really longing for deep philosophical conversations about us, about our origins, about our purpose, and about why every single one of us is special and amazing and magnificent. And while feeling this void, I started eating a lot of crap. In Spain, in Barcelona, there were those, I don't even remember the supermarket. It's 30 years ago now. And I've been bulimic for 5 years, whereas the last 2 years of those 5 years, I only purged once, but I still considered myself bulimic as long as I even felt the need to purge. So I went to those supermarkets and I was buying all these really low vibrational white bread with chocolate fillings. And I was eating that en masse, I can tell you. I was eating that like crazy. And then I started eating other things. And then when I had this feeling of, oof, I don't feel good. I feel like inflated, and oh my God, I'm gonna gain weight. That was the moment when I purged. And I did it about once or twice a day. I would say rather once a day during 3 years. And for some reason, I always had this inner guidance system, that inner guidance that was telling me, what you're doing, my darling, is not right. It is something that you're doing against yourself. It is not serving you. It is going to damage your teeth. It is going to damage your throat, because all that stomach acid that is coming up is not healthy, So I realized that what I was doing was not healthy, and it was something that was against myself. So I was in a way punishing myself, but I did not know for what. And then my life continued. I went to France. It continued a little bit there, but France was a little bit I mean, I worked in Switzerland back then, but I lived in France because I still wanted to speak the French language and I didn't speak it back then. And this is when I actually did not purge anymore, maybe once a year, but I still considered myself bulimic because I still had the thought, oh, I could always purge, you know, if I feel too inflated or too heavy or too afraid of gaining weight. Well, what I realized during those years is that it was a punishment towards myself. And what it really had to do with were the power fights between me and my mother. You know, my mother trying to kind of like squeeze me down. And I don't know if that was her own fear of not being enough, or, you know, because if you squeeze your own daughter, if you squeeze someone down like this, what are you doing with yourself, right? So basically, I was her mirror in a way that I showed her that you can live a free life. It is possible to go to countries alone and live your life and, you know, not depend on people. You don't necessarily have to have a family. I mean, I always felt like wherever there was nature, I felt like I had my family. There were trees in Spain that I could connect with. There was the Mediterranean Sea. There were birds, there were cats, there were dogs, there were flowers, and this was my kinship, you know? And so as long as I had nature wherever I lived, even in Hong Kong, I felt home. So, but then eventually, of course, I would have my own friends. I still have friends in Spain. I still have friends in Switzerland. I still have friends in Hong Kong, in the US. Whatever country I lived in, I created my own soul families, kind of like Jonathan Livingston. If you didn't hear about that seagull that, you know, kind of like drifted off their own flock and flew away just to see what is beyond the horizon, that small kind of like, you know, three-dimensional matrix conditioning that we are invited by society to live in, but I never wanted to live in because that was way too small for me. So I realized that a lot of my bulimic behavior had to do with the power fights between my own mother. And what did I feel? I felt suppressed. I felt like I could not express myself. I felt like I could not be the one that I truly was, that artistic, amazingly gifted human being, that like this well of wisdom. You know, as I shared in some of my last videos, when I started, people came to me when I was 13, 14 years old, asking me for advice. Older couples, you know, like 40, 50-year-old couples coming to me, asking me for advice. They must have seen something in me. And my mom was always like, the wise stories. You know, she was like that witch. And so sometimes there was this viciousness about her, that jealousness of being who I was. And sometimes I would start giving advice to those people because I felt like, well, they were asking me kindly and I have to share with them how I feel. And most often I was right. Well, my mother couldn't stand it. She would just either say that what I just told you, that really frightening remark, or she would just walk away, ignoring it. And I would have to run behind her. And I did run behind her for a long, long time because I thought that that was what I was supposed to do. I mean, at the end, she was my mother. She gave me my life back. She raised me, right? Back then, I didn't know better. Now I'm not running behind anybody anymore that is not accepting me as the one that I am. And thank God I learned my lesson. So then it was interesting because my life, as I was trying to make sense, and I healed myself, I read a book about bulimia, which was a little bit, how can I say, I don't even know the author anymore. But because of that book, something inside of me was determined to heal it. The book didn't give me any details or any advice of how you can heal it. I knew I have to heal my own inner conflict, my own war, my own inner war with my mother. And I had to make peace with her. And I had to think about her. When I thought about her, think of her in positive ways, you know, appreciating what maybe she taught me by those difficult behaviors, you know, and starting to appreciate what she could not appreciate in me, starting to appreciate that about myself. So I also learned about my body. I'm actually grateful today for those 5 years. And by the way, these were the years from 21 until 26. So yeah, 21. I mean, I was 21, I'm now 52. So that's like 30 years ago that I started. And I healed it like 26 years ago on my own, just by deciding, okay, I'm going to be that person for myself that my mother couldn't be for me. I'm going to give myself the appreciation. I'm going to connect more with like-minded, excuse me, people or my kinship nature. But most of all, I'm not going to give her power over me anymore. And I think that is what shifted everything, not giving the other person power. So I wanted to share something else here. I tried to keep my videos short because I know that we're all on a time kind of like schedule. I was still working through my own answers. I made the decision, I'm not going to do it anymore. And then I also lost that feeling. There was something else that happened. I met my ex-husband and we had a very active life together. And I suddenly didn't have to worry about weight gain anymore. But what I learned from that time is, how does my stomach digest things? You know, how fast is it digesting certain foods? So I learned about my own eating preferences, and then I completely changed my diet, and of course started eating a diet that would be good for me, that would be, you know, nourishing my body, that would be easy to digest for my stomach. I also, that's something that I wanted to share. I started studying psychology. I retook my studies when I moved to California and lived there. I started studying, and one of the topics that I picked was psychology, because I still wanted to learn about myself and finding answers for all the experiences that I made in my life. So I was looking up bulimia as well, and I took psychology classes that would talk about eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, you know, obese, how do you call this again? To be obese, anyway. And I remember that we had to watch a video, a documentary from therapists that was made somewhere in Santa Cruz. I remember it was a therapeutic center for eating disorder teenagers. And I was actually shocked when I looked at this documentary. And after the documentary, I was raising my hand and I was asking, everyone was trying to analyze those women, but no one ever asked them, how do you feel? How do you feel in the moment where you put your finger into your mouth and you purge? How do you feel in that moment that you're starting the abuse, that self-hatred, abuse against yourself when you purge? Because you know it is not good for you. You know, no one ever asked these women how they felt. And I mean, as long as we don't look at our own feelings, it is always a feeling that is dragging you to be an addict to alcohol or to drugs or to any kind of addictive behavior, which, you know, eating disorders are part of. Eating disorders can be addictive. I mean, for me, it was an addiction. Yeah, even though I only purged once a day, it was an addiction. It was something I was looking forward to, even not knowing how dangerous and how self-sabotaging it was for my own health. Not only my physical, but my mental and emotional health as well. Because I was repeating a toxic pattern, that power fight between me and my mother. So I actually raised my hand and I was criticizing, and I said, there is no healing without feeling. So what I did is I allowed myself to feel to feel that despair. And this was only opening kind of like a can of worms, because that healing continued all over my life until now. And I'm still, even though I might be a pretty figured out person by now, I still don't consider myself all the way perfect, because otherwise I wouldn't be here anymore, right? I would ascend like Jesus. So life is a healing journey. But life, the healing always begins when you look at your feelings. Healing begins when you look at your own feelings and when you question them. Not question them in a way like you're not trusting them or you're degrading your own feelings. No, question them. Okay, my darling, I feel like this right now. What does that mean for me? How can I be here for myself as best as possible feeling this way? And then be there for you, you know? I mean, for me, what I found out, it was this power fight. It was this feeling suppressed, like my own voice was kind of like raped out of my body by my own mother. That was the reason for, I guess, my bulimic behavior. And I don't blame her for it, you know, because she was only showing me there's always something that we learn. She was only showing me what I would be capable, what the strength, the amazing strength of my soul was, that I could bail myself out there on my own. And you know, honestly, a therapist wouldn't have even helped, because none of those therapists would even ask me, well, how do you feel when you do this? What's going on in your head before you do this? So my call to action for every one of you, and please let me know in the comments below if you resonate with this video. Let me know in the comments below if there's something particular that you want me to talk about. I have a wide repertoire of wisdom that I can share with you. So if there's anything else that you want to know about eating disorders, let me know what specifically it is, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions. But what I was learning from it is the amazing strength of who I am, that I bailed myself out there on my own by taking my feelings into consideration and being there for my own feelings, and, you know, nourishing me and asking me and being and holding me. And, you know, I still have potential doing it more nowadays, but this is how you can turn self-hatred back into self-worth, because life, for God, for the universe, for source, you're an extremely amazing being. And we shall never forget how deeply we are loved. And even though our parents cannot show us the love that they feel for us, or you might have had a similar childhood, you know, let me know what kind of childhood you had. Let me know if you have worked on your eating disorders or what you found out. I'm sorry for the light, by the way, it's getting dark here. But I really wanted to share that with you today. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that you need help with. And I'm, as I said, more than happy to talk about it. Remember your magnificence, beautiful being. Remember how worthy you are. Remember how much you are loved by life, by the birds that are singing for you. Baby, don't worry about a thing, because every little thing is going to be all right. And these are my words to you today and always. With so much love, everyone. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now, and thank you for watching.